Welcome to Adapt It, the podcast where we explore adaptations of various forms. I'm Tom, and with me is
Pat.
So today we have an unconventional episode. We're really not going to talk about an adaptation, but we are celebrating Nobel Prize Day, Nobel Prize Week. Can we call it Nobel Prize Day?
Yeah, yeah. It's Nobel Lit Prize Day. It is the
Yes, yes,
day
yes.
we are recording this on the day that the Nobel Lit Prizes were announced.
Yes, yep. October 9th, 2025, and 7 a.m. here in the States on the East Coast. We heard the announcement, and we are going to mention briefly this writer. Neither of us have read him a great deal, if at all. So eventually we're going to,
Yep. In 7 years, if we ever
yeah.
get to the 2025 winners.
Yeah, when eventually when we're in our senior citizen homes and we get to him, we will have a lot to discuss. But before we reveal the winner, though you could probably already know it if you're listening to this podcast, let's talk about our predictions, some of the predictions that were out there, and reveal the writer, maybe reasons why, from an outsider's point of view, this person won instead of somebody else, and go from there. So before the announcement, we texted back and forth our own predictions, and I also used various AIs to say what the AIs thought. And looking at the AIs, I went to Chat, everybody loves Chat, Grok, and Claude.
Oh, I didn't know what those were in your text. I thought those were the
Oh,
betting websites.
and I also have betting websites,
There's
but
more AIs than just ChatGPT.
there's a ton of them. Oh,
Oh
yes.
gosh. Oh,
Yeah, there is dozens of them.
I didn't. I thought it was just like ChatGPT. I thought
No,
that
that it
was
was
like the
proprietary.
No, I mean, I knew that AI was like out there, but I thought the one that was like people used. I didn't realize there was any like conventionally available alternatives.
Oh yeah, there's
Oh, interesting.
Chat, Grok, Claude. There's a bunch I didn't use. Gemini is another
Oh,
one.
fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay, well, anyway, that's just my ignorance.
you can have them argue with each other. That's very
Oh,
fun.
is that like that thing from years ago when they put the two chatbots talking to each other and they started accusing each other of being unicorns?
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
I haven't. No, I've seen a few of them where it's like atheist versus theist type things. And they're not original, but they're very good at quickly summarizing arguments that they can find for whatever it is. I haven't seen them become unicorns though.
Oh, there's one. This one was from years ago. I think this is when like these things were just first coming. It was like 2012, and they're like talking to each other, and they clearly like one of them figures out it's like you are a machine. It's like no, I am not. You are. It's like no, you are. And it's like you are a unicorn,
Hmm.
you know. And then they just like they can't figure out, and they're just babbling. It'll be like I did not say that. Yes, you did. Goodbye. And then they can't. So it's hilarious to watch them because they have no it's like very early on and they had no idea how to converse with one another, so it was pretty funny. So I imagine the technology has advanced since then.
Hopefully, yeah. They're pretty fun, but used a lot of these ones used a lot of betting odds. And Chat and yeah, just Chat had Mirka Kartakrusko, and yes, we are gonna
We have no idea. Yeah.
attempt to pronounce it. That was their number one, and uh Murakami was their number two, who is like probably the most famous person who appears on these lists, I would think. Joyce Carol Oates is probably up there, but she's never ranked as high or as likely to win as Murakami. I think he's the person people in America have read, who's like he's like a
I
literary
have read
author.
him. Oh, I've read his book. I've read a book by him.
Oh, what did you read?
I read What I Talk About When I Talk About Running.
I read that too.
Yeah, I read that
Yeah,
when I was running marathons.
yeah,
I
I
read
read
his
that one
book.
too. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's the only one. Because as soon as you mentioned, I'm like, wait, I've read him. I didn't when I didn't look at the list because I didn't think I'd read any of them. So I actually have read one of them. I've read Murakami. Yeah, I read that. I've read What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. Okay, yeah, that's a
Hmm.
good book. I enjoyed that
Yeah,
book.
yeah. He makes the top of these lists. There is apparently a few reasons from kind of information that has trickled out of the Nobel Committee. that he will never win it. I'm not entirely sure why. I think he is just too popular for their tastes.
They picked Bob Dylan.
They're a very hard committee to predict their answers. This year was a little more predictable, but um, well, anyway, that was chats. Their dark horse was the Mexican writer Cristina Rivera Garza. Grok had the Australian Gerald Murnon as their number one, and then Laszlo Krasnohorkai as their number two, and Garza as number three. Claude had the Chinese lady.
Terrible name for a like a software product. Claude.
Yeah,
Claude had this one.
Claude, and that was Kan Shui, and then Kazan Horke, the Hungarian, as number two. When you get into the betting odds, nicer odds, the big UK site had the Australian Murnani at 5 to 1, the Hungarian Krasnohorki at 6 to 1, and then Garza at 9 to 1. Then online betting, OLBD, had the Chinese author Kan Shui at number one, 10 to 1 odds, and Laszlo at 10 to 1 odds as well. And Murakami right behind them at 14 to 1 odds. The Economist, who is now using the magazine, is using some sort of big data model to try and predict Nobel Prize winners.
Oh, of course they are.
Yes, yes, yes. Based upon a trend in the distance between citation and when they were cited, they tend to try to use that with the lit stuff more as to what trends in literature are becoming popular and for how long they need to be popular. Their big data model also predicted the Australian Mernani. Um, Therefore, when I predicted my own, I also went with him, Mernani, and then uh, Garcia as my number two. My thought was Mernani is somewhat well known internationally. He was like in his 80s now. He's getting up there. He would be a good choice. Um, Kan Shui would also be a good choice, but however, last year we had a South Korean woman win, so they tend to check boxes and then move on, that type of thing. So I thought they're not going to do a another Asian person. They've been accused of not having enough Asian people. They had their Asian person. Now
They'll
they're
have one
gonna
in a
do
couple
something
years. They'll be
else.
like, well,
Mm.
well, maybe we'll have a little more frequently than we did, but we're certainly not gonna pick two in a row,
No, not doing a
probably.
row, God forbid. So I didn't think that. Krasna, oh God, Krasnahorkai, I thought might be a good pick. He's fairly well known because he is made into films a lot, or he's not. His books are made into films quite often. He's fairly well
It's like the Willy
adapted.
Wonka thing. He's made into films. He's made into TV commercials.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
I'm on TV.
Mike TV.
Look, Mom, I'm
Um,
on TV.
But I also thought that maybe he would be too popular. And also, his work tends to lean towards existential despair. And I kind of feel that trend is over. That people are not interested in Samuel Beckett influenced work anymore. Beckett's been what dead since the 80s, and that is why I didn't think it was going to be him. Um, Mernani has much more of this like idyllic getting that like the land of Australia, the outback of Australia. It seems a little more hopeful, and I thought that might be the direction they're going in. Um, Garza was, from what I could tell, again, excuse me, Garcia, from what I could tell, she's been around forever. She's written like 80 books. She is Spanish, she's a Mexican lady. I thought that would be very popular. And also she's just written a ton of stuff, apparently. So I thought that might be a good dark horse character, dark horse candidate, although she just doesn't seem to rank that high. She doesn't seem to be as popular around the world. And so just a balance of popularity and these other kind of pseudo-political boxes that have to be checked, I would say Murnani. That was my prediction. What was your prediction?
I mean, I if I'd known Murakami had written if I'd actually read the name list of names, I might have actually picked him because at least I've read his book. I haven't read like any of these people. I just don't read a lot of contemporary literature. So I predicted my pick was Joyce Carol Oates, if only because I thought it's probably I thought they would pick a woman and especially a North American woman because they really hate Trump. And so I thought they would do like another sort of like a knife in the side of a Trump thing that they
Mhm.
were just going to try to, to stick it to him because he won the election last year. So I thought, "Oh, they're going to do something like that." So I bet it's either Margaret Atwood or Joyce Carol Oates. And I thought they're not going to pick Margaret Atwood because she's too popular because of that Netflix series. So they're not going to pick her. She's too popular after the Netflix series. So I thought Joyce Carol Oates, and I looked up. I went to Google and the AI thing, which I think is powered by Chat GPT. I don't actually know. Now I don't know, but
Google
it came
Gemini.
back.
It's
Oh, was
Gemini.
it Gemini? Oh, okay. So now I know. But I was like, has Joyce Carol Oates spoken out against Trump? And it was like, yes, she has been a vocal, vocally spoken out, especially during the election and this guy. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick Joyce Carol Oates. At least I read a couple of her things in high school. I love her short story, the Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? Have you ever read that one? I
I
love
think
that
so.
story.
What is the plot of it again?
That's the one of the girl who listens to music and then she goes to the mall and it's like a short story. And then this boy shows up in his car and basically like convinces her to get in the car with her. Have
Mhm.
you read this one?
I don't think so. No,
Oh,
I
it's
know
such a good
that's
story.
that's the Matisse painting, right?
Sort of. No, it's not Matisse. You're thinking of the Gauguin painting. There's a where are you go? Where do you come from? Where are you going? Where do you, oh, gosh, it's the Gauguin painting. It's in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. Where do you come from? Where are you going? No, I don't remember what it is now. Now I can't remember. I can't
Whatever.
remember it.
It's not based on that.
No, it is not based on that per se. It's from the Bible, I believe. It's from a psalm. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's from one of the psalms. Um, so yeah, the Gauguin painting is like he wrote it. The Gauguin painting is fascinating. That was his suicide note. He wrote it. It's supposed to show the passage from birth to death. Like if you look at it, it reads from left. I remember I had like did a lot of research on this thing in high school, and it goes from left to right. And there's like a woman with a baby, and it goes through to like the tree of life, and there's an old woman in the corner. He wrote it as his suicide note, and then he went into the mountains of like and took like cyanide or arsenic, and didn't die, and so became convinced he was like a semi-divine god. And so came back from the mountains and continued to paint. He's a weird dude. But anyway, not related to the painting. It's from, I think it's Psalms. But it's a really interesting book. And the idea is like, I love she's an interesting character and it's actually quotes Bob Dylan too. Um, and there's like this whole thing with like the boy who shows up to basically convince her to get into his car and like drive off with him. It's just like a really cool story and there's a lot of symbolism. I loved it. I read it in high school. It was one of my favorite short stories ever. So I read a bunch of because I loved that. I was like, oh, I gotta read some Joyce Carol Oates. And then I read a couple of her other books. Like I think it was like We Were the Mulvaneys and a couple others. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't like her. And so I didn't read anything else, but I still love that short story. So I thought that was my pick, mostly because I know nothing else. So my, my pick was out of sheer ignorance and bravado. But that's it. I don't think I knew really any of the other ones on there that were on the list of even possible candidates.
Yeah, I should say I am
Pynchon. I know
not.
Pynchon, obviously.
Yeah, Pynchon, which for some reason he never ranks very high. I think maybe his works are just
The
so
two,
long.
it's just so out there.
They're really out there. The Nobel Prize, they seem to like books that are really out there, but his books, some of them are over 1,000 pages long. And I think it's just the combination of that. It's just and they also are filthy. Like Pynchon's
Yeah,
sense of humor is as filthy as if you're thinking of something dirty, his it's a little dirtier, I'm sure, in his book. So I don't think they like that.
yeah.
And I also say, in terms of like the political stuff, there was a really famous Nobel Prize lit winner in 2019, Peter Handke, who had a very pro-Serbian politics. And he won, and it was apparently like this huge outrage. Somebody resigned over it, which you're not allowed to do. So I guess the person is still on the on the
Yeah, they
committee.
just have an empty seat again.
They
We
just
they
have an
seem to
empty
have a
seat
lot of those.
again. Yeah. Um, and apparently the Nobel Prize Committee sort of likes going against the political climate in order to show that the art is what matters, not that the person has good politics. And there's a few examples of that, him being the most recent. Though, so I wasn't like, I didn't know if they would go for somebody who was necessarily specifically politically vocal. I thought actually that might be a detriment.
I just feel like the Peace Prize does that a lot then. I don't know enough about the current selection process. I feel like the Peace Prize does that a lot. They seem to always be trying to like it's like they gave it to like Jimmy Carter to like, just be like, hey, George Bush isn't very nice. We're gonna give it to Jimmy Carter.
Well,
Like,
the worst one was Obama.
I mean, that one just made no
It
sense. I
made
mean,
no, yeah.
it was like the man. I think even he was like, I don't think I deserve this. Like, I haven't done anything.
Yeah, and that I think later that week, didn't he bomb Iraq, right?
Probably. I
The
mean, that was
same
one of the
thing.
complaints. And then, he's going out leading, assassination missions against Osama bin Laden. It was like, why did probably shouldn't have won the Peace
Yeah,
Prize.
yeah. I mean, how
Yeah, I
many
mean,
people died in Yemen? That was
yeah, I think it's the so I just don't know enough about how they select them to know, because even, I'm looking at the list in the last few years, like when they were announced in the last few years, the only one, I mean, in the last even 20 years, the only ones that I knew when they were announced, I knew Pinter, and I knew, and this is their best pick of late was Mario Vargas Llosa. I knew him, and I've read some Alice Munro since then. Mario Vargas Llosa is the best pick they've had in recent years. That I love that guy. That guy is great. He's one of my favorite contemporary writers, and I actually do like Alice Munro. Although, I think we've said before, like her legacy is a bit complicated now. But as a writer, I really like her works, and I really like Mario Vargas Llosa. But most of these writers, I don't know them. Like, and that's again, it probably. I mean, I guess I knew Bob Dylan, but I'm not counting that. But I've read a number of them since they've won. But when it comes to picking a Nobel Prize winner, I almost never know these guys until they win, which is a bit sad because it means there's probably all these writers out there that I'm not reading. But I still am trying to get through Proust. So
yeah.
I'm gonna do
Yeah,
that first before I go read, you know,
yeah,
someone
and
else.
that's
That's the problem. Like, am I gonna put this much work into reading John Fosse, or should I finish reading Proust, or should I try to read more Camus, or should what do I want to read these other things. I want to read War and Peace. I want to read these other. So
what do
oh,
you
I gotta read
do?
those before I read these other ones, and that's just a product of life and taste, I
Yeah,
guess. But
of limits, and it goes to the positive effect of the Nobel Prize. I think we're both a bit, maybe cynical is too strong a word, but
suspicious.
amused. Yeah, suspicious and amused by the whole thing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, especially the first generation that we covered in this season, which is,
I
or
mean,
the first season.
they really struggled that first season,
Yeah,
man.
those first 2 decades or so of Nobel Prize winners is
It's a pretty rough list.
hilarious. Yeah. So
Well, it's
there's a
especially hilarious as we're going through the rest of this season. We have
Mhm,
our break here, but as we go through the rest of this season and you get like the people they missed,
mhm.
it is like you gave it a Sully Prudhomme over,
Check off. Yeah.
Chekhov. You gave it to Jose Echegaray over Ibsen. Like it's just the list is just comical, but yeah, we certainly got some interesting readings out of it. And I bet I just wonder, like, is there going to be somewhat commentary? Is it 100 years from now are people going to go back and be trying to read some of these people and be like, who is Lois Gluck? Like, what? Why did they give it to this woman? Like that? Why was that the first poet honored, American poet honored? Like, she might be wonderful, but was that the best poet you had from that time period? That's the problem. Some of these people have some merit. I don't want to say that Bjornson and Bjornson had no merit, but you picked him over Ibsen. This is the problem: is when you go and you compare them to what they could have picked, the list is comical. So Is the Laszlo the best current writer from this year? Maybe. Is he going to still be read in 100 years? Maybe. It's hard to say.
Yes, and we should mention, if you don't know, you probably do, Laszlo Franza Horky Horkai rather, is the winner. Born in 1954 in Hungary.
Oh, so he's young, 54. Compared to the other
Yeah,
guys,
he's
he's young.
fairly young. He is what, 71? I'll make him
Yeah, I mean,
71?
compared to some of the other guys we were just
70
talking about,
something. Hmm.
like I think Margaret Atwood and I think a number of them are born in the 30s. I think these guys we were just talking about, like Joyce Carol Oates, I think is 30s. These guys they're not young.
A lot
Margaret
of
Atwood
these
might be a little young.
Yeah, a lot of these prize nominees or the people who are on this list seem to be somewhere born between the 1940s and 1960s, with a few people in the 30s. The French lady was born comfortably in the early 30s, so she's going to be dead
Not gonna be much
soon.
longer, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully she'll get it or
Yeah, Margaret
not.
Atwood
But
is 39. I
uh,
thought she was a little
I
later.
think
She's
she's on
39,
the
and I know
older
Joyce
side.
Carol Oates is also in the 30s, so
Hmm.
she's
Yeah.
also in her 80s.
But he's younger. His first book was published in 1985, which I just started, Satan Tango, which is a really odd, really odd book. It's told in 12 chapters that count up and down, 1 to 6 and 6 to 1, which is supposed to keep time with a tango, like 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and then going out and then returning, going out to some position and returning to the initial position. And it follows a small, poor Hungarian village, which is visited by a con man who takes everybody's money and then gets them to all disperse everywhere. And it also follows a doctor who hits his head and goes to the hospital, and the whole con and the dispersing of everybody in the village happens while he's in the hospital. So he gets out of the hospital and nobody's there except a madman and who lives in the church ringing the bell.
It's kind of
Um,
fun. I mean, I like the setup.
Yeah, I do too. It's interesting. It's his writing style is very long sentences and no paragraph breaks. That's his that's
Those
his
are
thing.
always fun.
Yeah, yeah. It should be hard for you.
You should work for your joy.
Yeah. Yes, this should be like a gym membership. That's how reading should have happened. His other big famous work is the 1989 Melancholy of Resistance, which is a book about a circus that comes to town that displays only one thing, a dead whale. And that's it. And there's
Yeah,
a
that sounds like a book.
that does sound like a book. Yeah, so now I
Better than the Night Circus, but still. That was that book I always give as my example of why I hate modern literature or like popular modern literature anyway. I love the concept. It's such a brilliant concept for a book. It's I just call it the adjective circus because it just turns into like very long lists of adjectives of things and be like the food was, sparkling as it wavered over this glass that was as clean as a ice lake at night at the darkest of midnight as the billowing clouds of puffy air mildewed through. It's just like it's all these things. I'm like, oh God, stop! It's so overwritten, but it's a great concept. It's basically about this circus that it just people wake up one morning and it's there. It just appears in the middle of the night, and it's only open after sundown, and it's this completely black and white circus, and you go there, and it's just like all these weird displays, and then it's sort of like. And then just you go for a couple days and then it just vanishes and it's just gone and it shows up in some other city miles and miles away. So it's a really cool concept. And she had the writer had this really cool idea for a thing. And then I think she just had no idea how to finish it. And it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And it's very overwritten. It's a cool idea. It's like so many modern books are cool ideas. Like the Addie LaRue book is a cool idea, but it just doesn't know what to do with it. There's so many modern books that just are great ideas. They just need really good editors for the writers, and I think it's just editing is just overblown. So the idea is like, I don't, we don't want to edit this book from 500 pages down to 300 pages and make you really rewrite it and tighten it up and make it work. It's like, now it's better to just make it 500 pages. And then when we charge people $40 for the hardcover, they'll feel like they earned it. And then they can sit there with their giant book on the beach and show that they read the 500 page adaptation of David Copperfield, and that's the biggest thing with modern writing is it's more of a demonstration of girth than it is about good tight writing. And that's so the Night Circus is always my example of a great concept, actually pretty good writing. I think she could be good. But you need editors, like, and the editors are just so lacking because people are just like, nah, just churn it out, get a big book out there. If it's 500 pages, great. The longer it is, the more likely people are to read it or to be willing to pay so much to buy it. They're not gonna. No one wants to go pay $40 for a 200-page hardcover. They're gonna feel cheated. Like, why would I pay for that? Like, if you go and look at some of these books from like I have a copy of The Big Sleep from the 1930s. The equivalent amount of money is close to $40. It's like $35 to $40 adjusted for inflation. The book's like 250 pages. I think if you did that nowadays, people would be like, I'm not paying that. Why would I pay that?
Yeah, I remember Brandon Sanderson, if you know him. He's a science fiction writer, and I'm read almost all two-thirds of his first Mistborn trilogy. The man just cranks out books. He
Yeah.
cranks out books, and but he's a very good lecturer on writing. Like if you want the basic bare bones popular crowd-pleasing book, he's very good at talking about that thing. He's very charismatic and whatnot. And he's the one who completed the Wheel of Time when
Oh
Robert
God,
Jordan
yeah,
died.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is a guy who likes to crank out books, and he kind of made the point. He goes, "My last Mistborn book was a bestseller on Amazon. It was one of the on Audible. It was one of the best things Audible ever sold because people looked at it and went, for the same amount of money, I could get a 10-hour book. I could get a 35-hour
Yeah.
book. I'm going to go with a 35-hour book."
Yeah, it's
Mm.
exactly the same logic, and it drives me up a wall,
Yeah.
and basically you might as well have a long book, and to make a short book takes even more time. That's the is it Pascal who has the I wrote a long letter because I lacked the time to make it short. I think it's
That guy.
Pascal.
It sounds like him, but yeah,
And this is a similar concept. Like I've seen the thing where it's like somebody has like, if classic writers were given notes today, and someone had one for like Gatsby and it was like, great start, bump it up a bit, beef it out to 450 pages and send it back to me. Like it's just like that's what it feels like so many of these are. So I always so regarding the dead whale, we got off on a tangent, but regarding the dead whale circus, it's at least more, it's probably better than the Night Circus. And I like the concept of the Night Circus. I want to like the book. It's just editors. You need better editors and they need better ideas on how to shorten books,
yeah, his books seem to not be very long. I know.
which is probably good.
Yeah, they're like in the 300 page range. It tends to be. Um, his Night Circus book. Let's see how long that is.
No, it's not called Night Circus. Night Circus is the other one.
Excuse me, The
Maybe.
Melancholy of Resistance is his Dead Whale book. Okay, that's under 400 pages. That's 385, so a little longer. Both of those were made into movies by Bellatar, the, I guess, somewhat famous Hungarian filmmaker. I think internationally, he is probably the most famous Hungarian filmmaker currently working. He's certainly on the top of my top 20 list of current working Hungarian film directors. And he made,
I tried to find my notes from my Hungarian history course so I could brush up for this. I couldn't find them, but um, I did take a course in Hungarian history in college, and I couldn't I couldn't find my notes from it.
how was that Hungarian
It was good.
history?
It included other, sort of Central Eastern European countries. So it's sort of a, a history of the eastern parts of Austria-Hungary to a large extent. But it was actually a good course. I really learned a lot, and it helps explain a lot of current, sometimes geopolitical issues. Um,
Well, so this man, he made Satan Tango, And he took this like 300, 330, 340 page book and turned it into a 7.5 hour black and white movie. So, and then he made The Melancholy of Resistance into Workmeister Harmonies is the name of it, which was a more recent adaptation. And this is one of those movies that is on best 100 films of all time lists. It's on
Mm,
Roger
interesting.
Ebert's greatest film book, whatever that's worth. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's on the British Film Institute put it on, I think, the top 100 or 150 films of the 21st century, etc. So this book and the movie probably got him a lot of
Press, yeah.
international attention because I even knew the Dead Whale book before, when this movie came out, so many years before this. So when this guy was talked about as a recipient of the Nobel Prize, I'm looking him up, I'm like, oh, it's the dead whale guy. I hope the dead whale guy wins. At least I know who he is of these people. Um, but that being said, I was looking at his first book. It is his books are very, very artistically surreal. He likes kind of surreal images. He likes things that are sort of absurd. It's very
Which I like. I
Beckettian.
like the idea of the dead whale circus is a pretty good idea for a book. Like I like absurdity. I like Beckett. I like this kind of stuff. So it's fine. I don't mind that, but
Yeah, I do too. It just seems like they're artistic movements that are on their way out, right? Like it just seems like this is a thing that was hot as fire in the 1960s, and it's the 20s now. And I don't know. I was surprised, I would say, because I didn't pick him for my number one, because just based upon the tone and the content and even the genres of these things, or the style rather, it seems like this is one of the last vanguards of that style or of content like that, of themes like that even, right? I feel like we're entering into something more hopeful or something at least different. Um, like I've read
the
the
rear guard, I think you mean, by the way.
oh, the rear guard.
The
Yeah,
vanguard
yeah,
are
the
the
rear
people at the
guard. Yeah, yeah,
front.
he's not the
The
vanguard.
vanguard are the people at the front.
That would be like
If it
Camus
was the
or somebody
last
like
of the
that. Yeah.
vanguard, there's many more behind
Yeah,
him.
yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, last of the rear guard. Um, but so I had read, John Fauci, who I think his name is pronounced Jan Foss. I heard a interview with him, but
I
whatever.
like reading books. I don't need to worry about it.
No,
No
no,
one
no.
needs
Just
to
just
tell me.
saying, if it's either
When I
John
read the Wheel of
Fosse
Time
or
books, I mispronounced many words.
yeah,
As a
whatever.
10-year-old,
Just
I
think,
mispronounced many words in that book and no one corrected me. It's why I will
yeah.
never watch the Netflix
I'm
series because I
yeah.
don't want to know how they're
I'm
actually
not
pronounced.
not correcting. I'm just saying I heard in an
I'm
interview it
just joking.
pronounced
I'm
this
just joking.
way.
Yeah.
But his book. So I read his Septology, the 7-part trilogy
Yeah.
that's written in a kind of slow reading kind of way, and it is very strange, but it's also very optimistic, and it's kind of religious in a very simple way. It has a sort of simple faith, a simple Catholic
Yeah, he's
faith in
Catholic, I
it.
remember, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like anything that's sexual in it isn't celebrated or underlined. And in fact, it's often shut down. A sexual option is presented and kind of shut down. And that just seemed now Fuss is also pretty old. His stuff is going back many, many decades. But I just got the impression of,
So you think the Nobel Prize is in an optimistic period?
yeah, I think it is just, and not even just because history right now is optimistic. It's just, it seems like absurdity.
History isn't optimistic right now. I don't think people are optimistic, but
No, no, I don't think I'm not saying because history is optimistic,
oh,
because I
okay.
don't I don't think people are, but I don't think that's the reason why that it is in an optimistic mode or is looking probably for something different, though I think the selection might prove me wrong. My thought was that the stuff that we see with like, with Camus and then with people like Pynchon, and then no, I know he didn't win. And then a lot of people like Beckett who do win later on, is this sort of existential dread slash absurdity. And I think that's just out of energy. I
I think
think,
people just gave up on caring, or people gave up on caring about despairing.
yeah.
Like I think that's at least part of it, and I don't know if that's a product of distance from, say, the wars or something like that. Like people just
Or,
kind of were like, "Yeah, we're done with dread." Like I
mhm.
think there's sort of like we're just gonna kind of make it through the day now,
Yeah.
and so there's a sense of a lack of appreciation for, say, Sisyphus or something. Like I
Hmm.
just need to push this boulder up. Is it that's Camus, right? Is that
Hmm.
Camus? Yeah.
That is Camus.
And I think there's less of an appreciation for that and more of a, more I think of not existential dread, but sort of practical dread. That's why there's so much concern about the political systems and the collapse of the West and climate change and buying a house and markets and economies and interest rate. Like it just feels like a more materialistic, I guess. It's less existential dread and a more materialistic dread. There's less of a patience for spiritual or existential crisis. It tends to be more of a material crisis, which people call all the time an existential crisis. I'm like, no, making your rent isn't an existential crisis.
Mhm.
That's a different, it is a problem, but that's not existential.
And I think maybe the potential for optimism is greater when it's a material problem, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of how people see addressing these issues isn't through tapping out the way Beckett would do, right? Beckett would say, there is no God, we're just waiting, and oh well, we just have to wait. I think there is a
Yeah, we
sort of
play
sense,
games. We play games while we wait to
yeah.
entertain ourselves.
I think there's a sense with this, as you're calling a materialist dread, but we need to go out and change the system. It's kind of an annoying address, but it's a hopeful one. You can
Yeah.
do something about it, and actually you're responsible for doing something about it, which is very different from you're responsible for making meaning in an absurd world that will not give you meaning.
Yeah.
This is, there is meaning, there is truth, there is justice. We
You
just
have
have
to
to
you have to fight for it. Yeah.
you have to do it. And now we're in the age of doing things. I haven't read the Nobel Prize winner before this, but she's a Korean woman who wrote a book about somebody becoming a vegetarian and engaging in that whole thing, that whole world of vegetarianism. I don't know if that book is filled with dread or not, but I get the impression that it is not, that it's somebody doing something about materialistic problems. Now you could think of vegetarianism as being an absurd way to deal with many, many world
Yeah, but
problems,
it's
but whatever, it's a
it is a thing. It
thing.
is a
Yeah.
thing, and people
Mm.
make a choice to better the world or to better themselves. That is fair. Whether you agree with it or not is not the point of the book, and
No, no.
not
Or
how
at
you
least
should
just
judge the
discussion.
book.
Yeah.
At least
Mhm.
it's not how you should judge the book, assuming that that's not what the book is sort of inviting you to do. It doesn't sound like it is, so that's not the point. Goodness, she was young, born in 1970.
Yeah. Yeah. She was a dark horse. She was a true dark horse. I think her odds of winning that year were like 35 to 1 or 45
She's
to
probably the
1
first person to win the Nobel Prize born after the year like 1960 even. I don't think anybody's
in
even close.
literature. Yeah.
In literature, no one's even close. Yeah, I mean, in literature, yeah, not
Yeah. Yeah. That I think you're right.
like I can't even imagine anyone. I'm looking now. I mean, again, I usually try not to look, but I don't even see anybody born after 1960. There's only like one or two people born after 1950. Goodness gracious, she was young to win.
Mhm. No, good for
I'd like to
her.
read her. She might be interesting.
Yeah, that lady.
Again, I gotta get through Proust someday. It's always my justification. I'm like, I can't read John Fosse. I gotta read Proust. I gotta read all these other books.
Yeah, I love how yeah, this is your existential dread is I can't do anything with my life until I finish
Till I finish Proust. Well, I can't just do anything
Proust.
modern. I can't do anything modern. I gotta finish. There those other
Finish
things. I at
Proust.
least did the complete works of William Shakespeare. We did that last season. It's like, how can I justify spending my time with who do we got here? Olga Tokarczuk when I still haven't. and I hadn't read all of Shakespeare. At
Hmm.
least now I can
Yeah,
claim that one.
So, and I think Faust too is also in that way, right? He is much more. I find it an optimistic writer, at least in the those three works of his I've read. So I don't know. This is why this was surprising to me. Um this seems old school, right? This seems
And that might be, I mean, again, maybe they're balancing their interests here. This maybe they're being a little smart about it. We shouldn't all, we should, not to say like we should respect our elders, but we should acknowledge where literature came from, and that trend didn't go away in the 60s. It's still there, even if people aren't actively pursuing it. But it's still there, and they're willing to acknowledge that. It sounds
yeah,
more interesting. The dead whale story sounds more interesting. I should probably read that one. That one sounds good.
yeah. That does seem interesting. I want to get through this first one and see how it is. Um
I just like again, I love the idea. I like those kind of things of like just there's a village where there's one madman living in the town church ringing the bells. I love like that's the kind of that's the kind of thing I really like in literature. I really like those just bizarre elements of just like I like those. That's like one of my favorite things about modern literature and about just literature in general are just these like those types of scenarios. So I probably would like this guy, even the dead whale circus that has nothing but a dead whale. I that is interesting to me. It's why I liked the night circus as a concept. As a concept, that's such a cool idea. Just a circus that appears in the middle of the night. No one knows how it got there. It's only open at night. You go, and then it vanishes a couple days later. That's a cool. I don't know why. I really those kind of things really interest me.
I think it combine it's a mystery that well, they're mysteries that can't be solved, right? And so you have the intrigue of the mystery, but then the mystery becomes kind of decoding the symbol. Right?
Yeah,
And what is this symbol? What can I make of this symbol? Where can I connect or attach the symbol to? And so with the detective story, you eventually are given the answer to the
the answer. Yeah,
mystery.
but
With this kind of stuff, you get to sort of participate in the creation of the kind of symbolic value of whatever the thing is.
yeah, maybe that's what it
And
is. Yeah.
that's really, really fun. That's it's a really cool thing. I think that's why so much of experimental fiction is even when it's bad, it's intriguing. Like if you hear something that's just weird, you're like, I want to figure that
Yeah,
out.
I want to just know what is going on with it. Like what did the person mean that to be? And sometimes it's just like, no, they had no point. It's just like the human centipede. They just were trying to gross people out. Like there's no meaning here. This is just
Yeah. Or
stupid.
Holy Mountain. God, what is that director? The director who did Holy Mountain?
What is Holy Mountain?
Oh, he's a surrealist film
Oh, well,
director.
even like, but sorry, this is like that the Prospero's books.
Yes,
Where it
yeah.
was just
Okay,
like,
that's a
what
better
the
example.
what the what is this? Like, I know
Yeah,
you
this is
want
Peter
me to find meaning.
Greenaway. Mhm.
Yeah, you want me to find meaning in this, but I don't have the patience for this. This is just stupid. But it's that I live in Holy Mountain, but these ideas of just like you just threw a whole bunch of crap on a screen and then wanted me to try to spend days figuring out your grand vision. Like, no, that's not what I'm after. But
No, but it's within the same. But people who can do that well,
yeah,
it becomes intriguing, and even a description of it, like a description of Prospero's book sounds kind of interesting. It's a somewhat theatrical version of The Tempest. It's a
yeah,
theatricalized film version of The Tempest that
yeah,
involves,
heavily abstracted and
kind of almost like painterly. It looks like that he's
yeah,
constantly making paintings using these bodies and with John Gilgood in there. And you're like,
yeah.
oh,
It
that sounds
sounds
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
it's a train wreck, but it
that
sounds
sounds cool.
cool. You're gonna have
Yeah.
Mark Rylance just not speak.
Yeah. You're gonna hire
Waste
the
that.
greatest Shakespearean actor of
Yeah,
his
probably our greatest. Yeah,
generation.
of this generation, Branagh and Rylance are probably the greatest
And
male
he's not
Shakespearean
gonna say
actors. He's not
anything.
gonna speak. He's just gonna
We're
mouth
gonna
his
look at
words
his
and have.
balls and not hear him do any Shakespeare. But I Yeah, so I like those things too, and I think that's why I really was drawn to the postmodernists. And this guy, Laszlo, is very much in that vein. He's very much a postmodern writer, which starts in the Latin American writers, which are why they're so interesting in the 20th century. The Latin American writers.
Have you read Mario Vargas Llosa?
I haven't,
You
no.
gotta read it. You
Hmm.
gotta do it.
Hmm.
That's the best book I've read. That's the best modern book I've ever read. Is
Hmm.
the La Guerra del Fin del Mundo. That's the greatest book. That's the greatest modern book. I love that book.
The War at the Finish of the
The War
City,
of
the
the End of
end,
the Worlds. La Guerra del
Ascending
Fin del Mundo. The War of the
Mundo.
End of the
Oh,
World.
and the worlds.
Del
Okay.
Mundo. The War of the End
Hmm.
of the World.
Yeah.
That's the best modern book I've ever read. It's so good.
And Doris Lessing was the last Nobel Prize person I read. Um,
Doris Lessing. Oh, she's
or
the poet, right?
no,
She's
she's a
the
novelist.
Oh,
She's
yeah,
the
but
one
she's
who,
the grumpy one. She's the
no,
one who
she's the
yelled at the
grumpy
yeah. She's
one.
the grumpy. She's yeah. She's the grumpy one.
She's the most, she was
You haven't read
2007.
Alice Munro?
Oh, I've read Alice Munro, right? She's more recent. Oh, I've read Herta Mueller. She's more recent. Oh, I didn't realize Herta Mueller went one after Doris Lessing.
I don't know who Herta
Um,
Mueller is.
Herta Mueller
Oh, she's German. Yeah, she is.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was kind of East German and very abstract, simple kind of materialist. Doris Lessing is the last person I read in terms of just books I've read
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I read her like 2 weeks ago. I
Oh,
read
okay.
The Golden Notebook.
What about Bob Dylan? You haven't listened to you
I-
listen to a
that's
Bob
true. I think
Dylan
I've
song?
heard a Bob Dylan song
I think I've
more
listened to a Bob Dylan.
recently.
I listened
Yeah,
all along the Watchtower many times in my
yeah.
car. Granted, it's not his version. It's the Jimi Hendrix version. Does that count? Does it count if we read?
If you're, are you reading? I guess so. It's a translation.
It's a trans it's not it's
It's
an adaptation. It's an
adaptation.
hey, that is
Yes.
an adapt hey, we've come full circle.
This has been adapted.
But that's an adaptation
That's an
of the Nobel
adaptation
Prize
of
winners.
Nobel Prize winning work.
If we ever get to that episode, it's just gonna be us trashing the decision, right?
It'd be trashing the decision.
I don't mind Bob Dylan. It's just not a Nobel
Yeah,
Prize winner.
it's well, I think like probably trying to decode what they're doing. In a certain sense, I really sort of like the decision because it's such a middle finger to what you're supposed to do, but at the same time, doesn't work.
If they'd done that, if they'd had some courage, the problem is if they'd had courage, they would have done that in early on. Doing it now, this is, I don't know, running naked through a movie theater, or something like that. It's like, yeah, I guess it shows some courage, but it's also just juvenile. Like at this point, it's not really, I don't know. I found it kind of a juvenile decision. If they had done it many years ago, it would have felt brave. Now it just felt like we're out of ideas.
Mhm. Which is odd because I don't think they are out of ideas. So looking at this list of potential winners, I'm excited to read these people.
Yeah,
There's a
I mean,
lot of them
some of
on
them
there.
are, some of them seem very interesting. It's not that they're out of ideas on how to like they're still
Be
trying to it's a
relevant.
marketing it's a marketing thing.
Hmm.
They're trying to make the Nobel Prize not predictable. They don't want it to be predictable, but they also don't want it to be too far out of left field. So sometimes they're like, we're just going to pick the choice everybody thought we were going to pick. That's the I mean again, that would almost be like the I'm trying to think.
It's
Pinter.
kind of,
Pinter was
yeah,
probably the most recent one where it was like, of course they're going to pick Pinter. You got to pick Pinter. And to to some extent, like I know Lessing is very famous, less so here than in Europe, but some of these people are just like, you got to pick these people. Even Mario Vargas Llosa is a sort of a some not obvious choice, but he was very well known. So they're trying to avoid picking, but that's why they would never pick like Margaret Atwood because it's too popular, it's too they won't pick those, but they also want to pick they sort of want to be like, but you never know, we might pick Bob Dylan. It feels like you gotta pay. Stay tuned next year. Maybe we'll pick, I don't know, the lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish. Who knows?
Darius Rucker. That's
Yeah, who knows what we'll do next year? It sort of has that sort of
let her
feeling.
cry if she walk right out
I
on
mean,
me.
Let
let her
it be. Yeah,
go.
that's what I always joke with my kids. I'm like, oh, this song sponsored Sesame Street once. I'll be like, what do you mean? I'm like, let her be. But
Oh, it's
but
an
I'm
excellent
just
dad
waiting for
joke.
them. I'm just waiting for them to be like, this year we picked Julia Donaldson. She's like a children's writer that like
No,
like it'll be
no
like
idea.
pick Julia Donaldson for
Mm.
her ability to introduce children's stories, the children's joys of literature, and be like, that's the equivalent of giving Bob Dylan the Nobel Prize. It'd be like giving Julia
Yeah,
Donaldson the
I
Nobel Prize. I love Julia Donaldson, but she ain't a Nobel Prize winner.
yeah.
Bob Dylan might be great, but he ain't a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, I just remember when we were at college, when we were both there, there was a pretty successful professor who had done his kind of big poetry book on the lyrics of Bob Dylan and made a very compelling case for him having a high level of artistic value. Now, at that time, this is maybe 2005 or 2006, maybe. I didn't think you should give him a literature award. But I wouldn't have been offended by it. And I'm still not offended by the choice because I do think his lyrics do have artistic merit. There seems to be a sort of category or genre confusion, though. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
that's like what was his name? Poe, isn't he the one who wins in the 90s? The like
oh, Dario
mime
Fo, yeah.
Daria Foe, yeah, Daria
Mhm.
Foe. Like he's like a mime, isn't he? He's like an
It's
improv mime
Yeah,
comic.
it's a lot of his stuff is improvised. I saw one of his movies and obviously this wasn't improvised because it's a completed document. But I think a lot of the stuff is, yeah, he's
But I
just sort
don't
of
deny
making
that
it
that might
up.
be of high quality. But
Mm,
is that something that should be winning the Nobel Prize in literature? That felt like one of their like
mm,
we're gonna keep you on your toes.
mm,
You never know what we might pick.
mm.
We might pick someone you never expected. Yeah, and that just kind of feels like what they're going for here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and the what they would probably say if you're able to get behind the doors would be something along the lines of we want to increase the diversity of works that count as great literature. So improvised work, is that literature? Yes, it can be literature. Is folk music literature? Of course, it expresses the voice of the
of the
people.
Vogue, of the
Yeah,
Vogue,
yeah.
of Das Vogue.
Yeah, which
Yeah, I
actually,
mean, I
yeah. So I can see the upper crust argument as to why you would want to include these types of works because they're the best of their category, right? Dylan is the best folk lyricist. I don't know much of Foe's work other than the one I saw, but Foe is, let's assume the best of these kind of improv play comic weirdo type people. And so therefore they want their prize to speak to those types of works.
but I
I think
guess
the
I'm just waiting for their next year when they're going to be
mm,
like, we haven't shook things up in a while. Let's give it to Stephen King. And there's a certain element where it's like, I mean, Stephen King he's actually an entertaining writer, and he's a fairly good writer if you read some of his stuff, and I think his on writing is a particularly good guide. But is this going to be a like for his ability to introduce literature to many genres?
Yeah.
But that's the when what is going to be their next sort of like we got to gimmicky it up a bit.
Yeah,
We got to
but
shake it up.
Poe and Dylan are in different categories. Right? If you give it to King, you can't do well, we're going to expand the definition of literature because even if you don't like Stephen King, he's writing books. Like this is clearly literature by any definition. With Foe and Dylan, at least there's
Yes.
this kind of thing of we are changing the definition of literature by nominating them, by awarding them rather. I don't the problem I find with it is it's actually an economic problem. If you're giving it to Dylan because you really want to change the definition of literature, you're not drawing attention to these other writers who are not in any way controversially inside or outside the definition of literature. They are the definition of literature, or what they're producing is the
Yeah.
definition of literature. And it's really good and really interesting and doing intriguing things within the framework of what most people would call literature. to have to redefine literature when you give out a Nobel Prize presumes there isn't an incredible diversity within literature that requires, us looking
And
at.
I guess that's my problem with giving it to Dylan was like you really there was no one else who was like a real writer who was not singing folk songs.
Yeah.
You know that there was no one
Mhm.
you could have brought attention to.
Yeah,
Even if you wanted to be, I mean, like I don't know, is there no better folk writer than Dylan? Like, I mean, is there no one out there? Like, this just it feels like a it feels like a plea, a sort of a ploy for pop culture, for headlines, because everybody knows Bob Dylan, and so now you just kind of like co-opt Bob Dylan's fame and be like, see, like we're taking that shine and putting it on our armor. Like that's kind of what it feels like, and it's like you cheated. You cheated here. You felt like you might be slipping into irrelevance, so you decided to give it to a pop figure. And what are they going to do it again? But at least they haven't done it for a while, and many of their selections have at least been original. They are attempting to draw attention to different writers. It's just part of the nature of this prize is that it's just feels so artificial. They should just start giving it to three people a year just so they can
that
expand
would
it.
probably be better.
Just give it to three people a year. Just
Yeah.
just instead of and it would diminish the value, but that kind of feels like what it needs. It's too much as we said when we first started this thing, it's too much like an aristocratic thing.
Mhm.
Like we are knighting you. We are placing you above all others. And for literature is the only one I think that's never shared a prize. The others have all shared a prize.
The
They've
literature
split.
set a prize a few times,
Have
even in
they?
the few years. Oh yeah, even when we've done it. I mean, Jose Echegaray shared it the
Oh,
year
did they?
with
Oh, I thought there was still one
Mistral.
of those things where like we didn't award it the year before, so we're giving it this year.
Oh no, they should. And the most recently it was 1974.
Oh, wasn't that the year they couldn't decide and they gave it to the two like
They gave it to the
Swedes?
two Swedes,
Yeah,
and it
okay,
was a
okay,
disaster,
okay,
and
yeah, yeah,
they've
yeah,
not
yeah.
done it
Okay. I
since.
take it back. Fine. So they have.
Uh,
But I just feel like this is a prize begging to be diminished.
I think so, and I think
If you
that.
just gave it to three people a year and made it less of just the crowning of the poet laureate of the world, it's sort of what
Yeah,
it's
that's what it is.
become.
Yeah.
Just this is a prize begging to be diminished. You got to give it to more people and make it more a thing of all literature. And we're going to try to make it less of a crowning ceremony.
I think that would be good. And I think so. Here's the positives and the negatives. Number one, I think you're right. It would be less of establishment of an aristocrat and revealing a sort of diversity of works that are
Yeah,
important.
that's what
Um,
they should do.
the problem I think that could arise is you end up getting a lot of Tolkien choices. So you get
True.
like okay,
Well,
so
this is the
somebody
yeah.
has to be Asian or African. Somebody
Every
has to be
year,
female. I
every
mean,
year there will be one African, one Asian, or one Central American. We will have
yeah.
one European, and then
Mhm.
every other year we will alternate between a Russian and
Mhm.
a and a South African, and then occasionally we will include an Inuit. Like
Yes.
you're right.
It'll
That's what they're going to
become
end up doing.
that's if they don't do that, that would be great. And then you could just actually have you
They're gonna
can
do something stupid. Yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
And not to
Or
say
people,
that
or worse, people are going to search for that. They're going to
mhm,
look for what is the formula?
mhm.
How are they diversifying their picks? Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
yeah. Oh, then they'll get a lot of criticism, and they'll get, which
Yeah.
they did. I mean, that seems to the problem with
But at
the
least right now, when their criticism comes in, they can be like, we can only pick one a year.
they
And
can dodge it
what are we
and
limited to? We can only pick one a year. Whereas if they picked three a year, it could be like, why did this year you picked three white people, and
mhm,
why did this year you picked two Asians, and this
mhm.
year that's the nature of today's sort of looking at things,
Discourse.
and people
Yeah.
will get mad, and they're going to look at the picks and get angry.
And it's a shame because if that's probably why Han Kang, who won in 2024, won because there was a lot of criticism they never picked an Asian woman. Like, well, guess what we're gonna do? Pick an Asian woman, and she's an unexpected one too. She was not the top Asian woman.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess it's sort of,
so
did
they
you pick
get
the
to have
best one at
yeah.
least?
Well, I guess it's one of these like you get to have your cake and eat it too. Is we did the politically popular thing, but we didn't pick the popular writer.
Writer,
So
we did
we
something
were
unusual.
yes. And
No, I mean, I guess they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. This
yeah,
is the
that's the
problem with
thing.
this prize. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do. You will anger people no matter what you do. If you expand it, people, you're diminishing the prize. This is like expanding the best picture to 10 winners, to 10 nominees. This is how you end up with just like, why was that picked for the number? Like,
Hmm.
that's the 10th, it's like, well, it's the 10th best movie in a week year. That's
Yeah.
why
That's
Up,
why yeah. It
ends
does
up on
nominate.
the
Yeah.
list.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, Up's fine. It's not the best picture of the year.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say though, one of the nice things about exploring this list, and I will say, reading John Fosse was he is a representative of something called slow writing, which
Yeah,
until
you
I
mentioned that,
read
yeah.
him, I've never heard of. And slow writing is just describing in excruciating detail and repeating over and over something that's happening. And I don't mean with lots and lots of adjectives. It's just I drove to the parking space and I saw the parking space and I thought I should park the car. And then I parked the car. And after I parked the car, I got out of the car and I thought, well, I need to get something back at the house. So I got in the car and I pulled out of the parking space and I saw someone who wandered into the parking space. And so I moved out of the car quickly so they can get into the parking space. And it's just every detail is given a pretty plain sentence and then they move on. And I'm sure this has been done very, very poorly. When he does it, it's kind of hypnotic. And but regardless, it's nice to know that movement is out there and a bunch of people have been working on it in order to create something new. And he wins because
He did something new,
he
yeah.
did something new. It probably had to do with the fact that he's the best known playwright in Norway since Ibsen. But he also has this whole style that he is the poster boy for. And that's really cool. When they do things like that, it's really, really cool. Like that's when I read Herta Mueller back in when she won, I think 2009. Let me look. Yeah, she won in 2009. It's this like East German it's hard to describe. It's just descriptions of
German
things.
Soviet realism.
Yeah, but it just feels like it's not realism necessarily. It almost feels like she's just describing things, almost like there's just piles of junk. Like her prose almost comes like, here's another pile of junk, and here's another pile of junk. And they're really short, they're really easy read books, just in terms of their length. But clearly this is part of a movement, and she's just the person who
Does it best, yeah.
does it best or became known best or whatever. And now I know about that movement a little bit and I know about that. That's when it does it really, really well.
Yeah,
And I
I would
think,
agree.
or artistic excellence, just sheer brilliance. Like you're saying with Losa, I haven't read him yet, but when that happens, that's when it's at its best, which is rare, but whatever. And I will say it was fun to anticipate the winner this year and listen when it's
Yeah,
announced. This is genuinely, even though we're critical of this, I think a good thing.
I think it's a good thing. I wish they did it better. Like, I think it's good. It's like the Academy Awards. If you didn't have it, it would feel like you needed it. You need something that just kind of finishes a year and signs off on it and gives something out to acknowledge it. Even if it drives me up a wall because every time they pick the wrong thing practically. But you need it. You just we need it.
It's what we value. That's the thing with the Oscars, I think even more than this. It is what people were valuing at this time.
Well, I just mean you people want a thing they can just
Mhm.
be like, this is we celebrate. It's why the Booker Prize, it's why the Pulitzer Prize. Like they're deeply flawed, but it's just a way of celebrating a thing. And yeah, the Pulitzer Prize is probably not picking the best book in America. The Man Booker Prize is probably not picking the best book in England. This is probably not picking the best writer in the world. But we still get a chance every year to try and see if we can get it right. Often wrong, but let's try
Yeah, I agree.
and never pick Bob Dylan again.
Never pick Bob Dylan again. He'll win for chemistry next time. He'll win for peace. That's what he's for peace.
I
Uh,
mean, you
can we
say
start that
it,
campaign? Can
you
we start
say
the
it, you
Bob
say
Dylan?
it, you say it, and they might, they might.
He'll deserve the economics one though. That's a clown show he could belong to.
You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found.
Wow, Talking Studios,